You are receiving something that the majority of people will never encounter. Not because it was locked away from them, not because they were unworthy of it, but because God does not release a transmission like this until the consciousness receiving it has arrived at the precise frequency required to do something meaningful with it. Earlier would have been premature. These words would have fallen onto ground that had not yet been prepared to hold them. Later would have been unnecessary. Either you would have discovered this through a different path, or the opening would have sealed completely. You are here, receiving this now, because God determined that this is the moment. Not the universe in some distant, impersonal sense, but the specific, infinitely precise, deeply intelligent awareness that has been choreographing the timing of your entire life. The intelligence that knew which experiences would build which capacities, which losses would crack open which chambers, which long, difficult seasons would construct the exact internal structure that this transmission needs in order to arrive inside you the way it is about to arrive. This is not poetry. This is not metaphor. This is how divine intelligence actually operates when you understand that consciousness and creation are not two separate things, that the field responds to the readiness of the one receiving it with the same perfection that a key responds to the lock it was specifically shaped for. And your readiness is what brought you to this moment. Close your eyes for just a breath. Imagine yourself not watching something from the outside, but inside it. Between the words, inside the space, this is opening in you. The kind of opening that only happens when God decides the time has come. You are not reading this on a page. You are receiving it in the field between these words and what they are already activating inside you. Write ready in the comments, not as a wish. As the acknowledgement of where you already are, there is a specific quality to the moment when a transmission reaches the consciousness it was built for. It does not feel like acquiring new information. It feels like remembering something ancient, something you have always carried inside you but could never quite access through the ordinary surface of your thinking mind. A recognition that moves through your entire body before your analytical mind has even finished deciding what to make of it. The feeling of something unlocking inside you that you did not know was locked. Something that has been waiting quietly, patiently, for longer than you could trace, to finally open. Think back over the last several years of your life. Were there not moments when exactly the right conversation appeared at exactly the moment you were prepared to receive it? When a book fell open to the precise page that answered a question you had not yet spoken out loud? When a person materialized in your life carrying exactly the wisdom your soul had been quietly asking for, not one day before you could have received it, not one day after the window had passed? That was not luck. That was not coincidence. That was divine intelligence operating through the field, routing what was needed to the frequency that was prepared to hold it. The same intelligence that organized those moments has been organizing your entire path. Every experience that stretched your capacity, every difficulty that removed what was never truly yours to carry, every season of not knowing that was quietly preparing the ground for what you are now receiving. God did not send this to you randomly. God sent it because something inside you completed, because a readiness arrived that was not present before. And the field, which perceives the actual state of your consciousness and not the story you tell yourself about where you are, responded by sending this to you now. Let me take you somewhere. There was once a marketplace that existed in the space between ordinary exchange and divine order. A place where the most extraordinary objects ever brought into existence were quietly offered. Vessels crafted from crystallized intention, mirrors that reflected not your face but your genuine potential, books that did not deliver information but produced activation inside the reader, teachings that did not instruct the mind but reorganized the field itself. The merchant who kept this marketplace had a problem that defied all reason. He could not complete a single sale, not because no one wanted what he offered. People wanted it desperately. They arrived from enormous distances. They offered everything they had. But every time someone attempted to make a purchase, the payment dissolved in his hands. Gold became dust. Silver became vapor. Even the rarest gems crumbled at the moment of exchange. For years, he believed the fault was his, that he was simply the worst merchant who had ever tried to offer something of real value. Until the day a traveler arrived. This traveler was hollowed out from years of searching. His hands were empty from everything he had released across a lifetime of looking for what he could not name. He did not know precisely what he was seeking. He only knew that he had been seeking for longer than memory could hold. When his eyes fell on a simple, worn book, one that dozens of others had tried to purchase before him, something extraordinary happened. The book began to vibrate, not with sound, with presence, with a frequency that only he could feel in that exact moment of his life. Every cell in his body recognized what his mind had not yet finished processing. This object had been waiting, not for just anyone, for him. After this specific journey, at this specific moment of inner completion, when he offered payment, it held. The exchange was completed. The book had found its reader. This is when the merchant understood what had been occurring all along. His objects were not refusing to be sold. They were refusing to be received by those who were not yet ready for what they carried. Each one was encoded with a specific signature of consciousness, and it would only fully activate, only become real in the deepest sense, when someone arrived whose inner field matched that signature with precision. God's gifts work this way. What carries your name is not being withheld from you. It is waiting for the version of you that has been assembled through everything you have lived. Here is what the nature of the field reveals about why timing is never arbitrary. At the deepest level, reality does not exist in fixed, definite states. It exists as waves of pure potential, every possible configuration present simultaneously, until the moment of genuine encounter with consciousness. When awareness meets the field, the potential collapses into the specific. The one observing does not simply find what was already there in a fixed form. The observer and the field co-create what manifests in that moment of real contact. Your readiness operates the same way. The teaching, the guide, the specific transmission you need exists in the field as potential, present, available, real. But it doesn't collapse into your specific reality until your consciousness reaches the frequency that matches it. Not because God is withholding anything, because the field operates through resonance, not through force. The lock does not open until the right key arrives. Not because the lock is unkind, because that is the nature of locks and keys. This means something significant about where you are right now. You are not receiving this because you worked hard enough. You're not here because you earned this through sufficient suffering or years of discipline or the right amount of spiritual seeking. You are here because something in your field completed, because a threshold was crossed. Not with a dramatic announcement, not with a lightning bolt from the sky, but quietly in the accumulated weight of everything you have lived. And the field responded by rooting this to you. The readiness was not something you constructed consciously. It was built through you by everything God was assembling through the raw material of your experience. And now it is complete. Stay with me now, because I want to tell you about the moment I understood that I had never been late for anything in my life. For years, I carried a quiet, persistent heaviness, the feeling of being behind. The sense that others had discovered the teachings earlier, had crossed the thresholds faster, had arrived at places of inner clarity that I was still working toward. That there was a timeline I was supposed to be keeping up with, and I kept missing it. Then something shifted. A transmission arrived, not through effort or searching, but in a moment when I had stopped both. When I had let go of the map I had been following and gone still enough to receive what was actually present in the field around me. In that stillness, a clarity arrived that restructured everything I believed about time. I had not been late. I had been in preparation. Every season I had experienced as delay had been constructing a specific architecture inside my field. Every moment of feeling behind had been stripping away the urgency that actually prevents genuine reception. The state I had been reaching for through effort had been available the entire time, but it required a receiver that force cannot build. Only the seasons I had been living through could build it. I was not behind. I was on time. I had always been on time. Before we go deeper, I want you to do something tonight. Before you sleep, sit quietly for a few minutes and recall 3 specific moments when something arrived at precisely the right time. Not a day early, when you would not have been able to receive it. Not a day late, when the window had already passed. Exactly when your soul was prepared to receive it. A book someone mentioned in passing that answered a question you had been carrying in silence for months. A conversation that appeared from nowhere and redirected everything. A loss that broke something open in you that could not have opened any other way. As you hold each one, speak this aloud. I recognize the perfect timing of everything God has placed in my path. I trust the intelligence that has been orchestrating my life. I am ready to receive what is already moving toward me. This is not affirmation for the sake of positive feeling. This is an acknowledgement to the field. You are telling the field that you see the pattern, that you recognize the intelligence, that you are no longer operating from the frequency of being behind. And the field responds to what you acknowledge as real. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay present now, because this is where we enter the deeper layer. Here is what changes everything, and what most spiritual teachings are specifically designed to prevent you from discovering. The harder you seek, the further you move from what you are seeking. Not because seeking is wrong, but because seeking broadcasts a specific frequency, the frequency of someone who does not yet have what they are looking for. And the field responds to what you broadcast, not to what you want. When you broadcast lack, even sophisticated, spiritually articulate lack, the field continues to organize around someone who has not yet arrived. The ancient teachers encoded this truth in parables. A student approaches a master. How long until I reach what I am seeking? The master says, 10 years. The student says, what if I work twice as hard? The master says, then 20 years. Not as a riddle for its own sake, as a precise description of how the field operates. Effort applied in the wrong direction compounds the distance. But here is what those same teachers also understood. There comes a moment when the seeking has completed its work. When you have searched far enough, released enough of what was never truly you, moved through enough of the specific curriculum God designed for your frequency, that you arrive at something the seeking itself could not produce. Not a destination, a recognition, the shift from looking for what you are missing to seeing what has always been present. Invisible only because you are vibrating at the frequency of someone still searching for it. You are approaching that recognition right now. I can tell because you are still here. The person who only wanted new information stopped long ago. The one who is still present is the one whose field is beginning to recognize itself in what is being described. Write "I am ready" in the comments, not as performance, as the declaration that you are choosing to shift from the frequency of seeking to the frequency of recognition. Oh, I need to tell you this story. There was a master craftsman who had spent decades learning to shape reality through pure will. He was known across great distances for his ability to force even the most resistant materials into the forms he intended. His precision was extraordinary. His discipline was absolute. Whatever he decided to create, he created through the specific quality of sustained, unwavering force, until the day he encountered a material that simply would not yield. He brought everything he knew to it. More heat, different angles, stronger instruments, longer sessions. The material refused him entirely. And the refusal was not aggressive. It was simply complete. As if this material existed in an entirely different relationship with reality than anything he had ever worked with before. Exhausted, he stopped. Not strategically, genuinely stopped. Sat beside the cooling forge in the specific quality of stillness that only arrives when every tool you own has been tried. And none of them worked. And in that stillness, something changed. He stopped hearing the silence of failure. He started hearing the material itself. Not in words, but in the specific quality of a field communicating with a receiver that had finally become quiet enough to listen. And what he felt was this: your force creates resistance. My nature wants to flow. I'm not here to be conquered. I'm here to be partnered with. The next morning he returned to the forge. But this time, he listened first. He felt for the material's natural movement, its inherent direction, the form it was already reaching toward. And when he stopped imposing his vision and started partnering with the intelligence already present in the material, something extraordinary emerged. Not what he had planned. Something better than anything he could have planned. Because it was not his intelligence alone that produced it. It was his intelligence in partnership with something larger than himself. This is what God is inviting you into in this season. Not the end of action. The transformation of how you act. From forcing outcomes through the will of someone who does not yet trust the field, to flowing with the intelligence already present in everything around you. Now, pause and simply sit up straight. Place your hands on your knees with your palms open and facing upward. Feel what that simple physical gesture does inside your body. The way it opens rather than closes. The way it receives rather than grips. Breathe in slowly and say internally, "I'm an instrument of divine intelligence." Breathe out completely and release one layer of the grip, the tight hold on how and when and through what specific form what you are waiting for is supposed to arrive. Breathe in, "I trust the timing of divine intelligence." Breathe out, "I release the need to force what is already moving toward me." Do this until something in your field shifts from the posture of forcing to the posture of receiving. Until you feel less like someone trying to manufacture something and more like a clear channel through which what is already in motion can move. Let me say something I believe you have needed to hear for longer than you realize. You are not late. You have not missed anything. The window has not closed. The season you experienced as delay was not God forgetting you or the field passing you over. It was construction. Think of fruit ripening on a tree. An apple does not ripen faster because you are impatient for it. It ripens through the precise interaction of sunlight, temperature, and time, forces that operate on a timeline that no amount of urgency can compress. If you take it before it is ready, it cannot give you what it carries. If you wait past the moment of its fullness, that moment passes. But if it is received at the exact moment of its ripeness, it delivers everything it was built over its entire life to deliver. Your readiness works the same way. There are specific transmissions you could only receive after the experiences that felt like loss. Specific recognitions that required the specific confusion that preceded them. Specific capacities that could only be formed through the pressure of the seasons that felt, from inside them, like punishment. God was not punishing you. God was ripening you. And the fact that this transmission is reaching you now, the fact that you are still present, still receiving, still feeling something in these words that goes beyond intellectual curiosity, that is the evidence that the ripening has arrived at its moment. What God has for you on the other side of this recognition is not what you could have received before the journey. It is calibrated to the person the journey built. And that person is genuinely different from the one who entered it. When God decides that readiness has arrived and the transmission finds you, what comes is not what you were reaching for during the search. It is better than that. Specifically, precisely, intelligently better. Because it was designed for who you became through the search, not who you were when you began it. The version of you that first started seeking imagined the destination in the language of the frequency you were at when you began. What God delivers is calibrated to the frequency you have actually arrived at. The relationships that arrive after genuine readiness carry a quality of recognition that wished-for relationships never had. Two fields that have been prepared for each other, encountering each other at the right moment. Not before either was ready. Not after the window had closed. Exactly when both were complete. The creative capacity that opens when you stop forcing and start flowing produces work that cannot be manufactured from the previous state. Not because you are trying harder, because a different quality of intelligence is moving through you now. The intelligence of a field that has stopped fighting itself and started partnering with the order that was always present. The material world reorganizes. Not as a reward for spiritual achievement, but as the natural consequence of a field that has cleared its interference. Abundance does not arrive because you earned it. It was always available. What changed is the coherence of the receiver. And the field, which was always abundant, now has a channel clear enough to move through. And there is a quality of peace that cannot be manufactured through effort. The specific settledness of someone who is no longer broadcasting the frequency of seeking, who has arrived not at the end of all growth, but at the recognition that what they were looking for was never actually absent, that God was never withholding, that the timing was never wrong, that everything was building precisely and intelligently toward the exact moment of readiness that is now complete. Determined that you were ready for this transmission, and this transmission was designed to lead you toward what comes next, the God state. Quantum Mastery Guide is what I built for the specific frequency you are in right now. The frequency of someone whose readiness has arrived and who no longer needs more inspiration but needs a precise map for inhabiting the state that this readiness has made available. Over 100 pages, the complete architecture of the I Am God state. Not as a concept to intellectually understand, but as a state to stabilize and live from. Practical techniques for working at the level where the actual shift occurs. not at the surface of intellectual agreement, but at the foundation of the field where new baselines are permanently set. Specific guidance for every moment when the ordinary world attempts to pull you back into the frequency of seeking after you have already crossed into recognition. The entry point is $22.22, a number that has appeared persistently in my own field as a signal of alignment, a synchronicity I stopped trying to explain and started honoring. That is the entry. But the checkout is open. If a number arrives in your own awareness, a frequency that carries meaning for you, a sacred number that your field recognizes, enter it above $22.22. And in the moment of that exchange, make it not a transaction, make it an intention. A declaration to the field that you are receiving this as part of the path God has been constructing through you. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Check it now. God decided you were ready. The God state mastery is the next step. Here is something that reaches deeper than individual readiness. When God routes a transmission to a specific frequency, the one who receives it does not receive it in isolation from the larger field. Every consciousness that arrives at genuine readiness, that shifts from seeking to recognition, from forcing to flowing, from broadcasting lack to broadcasting arrival, changes the collective field in ways that extend far beyond their individual life. The ancient mystics called it the gathering of the light, the moment when enough individual sparks of divine consciousness reach sufficient clarity that the field around them begins to shift, not through organized campaigns, not through collective systems, but through the quiet accumulation of individual consciousnesses that have stopped blocking the divine frequency and started conducting it. You are part of that gathering, not because you signed up for it, because you reached the readiness that made you visible to it, and your readiness strengthens every other frequency approaching its own threshold, the way a single flame in a dark room makes the next flame easier to find. There is someone in your life who is approaching their own moment, someone who has been inside the specific kind of searching and difficulty and confusion that preceded yours, who is closer than they know, to the recognition that God